Out Loud, available on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or Pandora. Or head on over to the website americaoutloud.com and check out the articles and podcasts. And please share those on social media. We have a big show tonight for you. We will have friends of the show, Bebe Diamond and Heather Robinson, joining us. Things are heating up in the news, but first, check out healthycell.com and see all of the great products and see I Love Focus. Blah, blah, blah. Just going to start over here. Welcome to After Dark with Rob and Andrew on America Out Loud, available on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, or Pandora. Head on over to the website americaoutloud.com and check out the articles and podcast. We have a great show for you tonight. We will be joined once again by friends of the show, Bebe Diamond and Heather Robinson. Things are heating up in the news, but first check out healthycell.com and see all of the great products. I Love Focus and Recall and the Immune Super Boost, which fuels the immune system with vitamin C, D, and zinc and fights off disease. Save 20% with the code OUTLOUD. No BS, Rob and I are taking it, and we love it. Healthycell.com. You know, we have 3 people on the panel who have spent a lot of time in New York City and New York, and I'm looking forward to their thoughts on the recent news with Governor Cuomo, or former Governor Cuomo. Speaking for myself personally, I think something stinks. I am no fan of Cuomo, but these late Me Too allegations always leaves me skeptical. I think it is going to be interesting to see how things play out, and Governor Cuomo should have probably let the process play out even further. Rob, how are you doing tonight, and what are your thoughts?
I'm doing great. Thank everyone for joining us. Yes, we are on again, and I've had my healthy cell, and I got to say that I feel fantastic. It gives me that boost that I need to take it into the night. Take it during the day, gives me the boost during the day, and it carries over into the night so that I can come to you guys live and talk to you about our show with After Dark with Rob and Andrew. And on After Dark, anything can happen because we don't hold anything back. We make certain that everything that's out there, we talk about. Now, you mentioned Governor Cuomo. I don't like Governor Cuomo, for one, because he is responsible for the death of 15,000 Americans. Now, I know that Joe Biden said, oh, he's did a good job. He did a good job. And the news media loved him. A lot of women got twinkles or something up their leg when they saw him. So he was a regular stud muffin. Even his brother said that he was a stud muffin. I think that the guy is weird. Okay, he and his nipple ring. And I do feel that what's happening to him right now, he should have fought this out. He shouldn't have just resigned so easily. Now, of course, being the arrogant person that he is, he's coming out saying, oh, well, you know, had they impeached me, I would have won it. Well, I wouldn't count it, buddy. But the accusations, or what's ending his career, these sexual harassment accusations, they're bad. But I think that the fact that he killed or murdered 15,000 Americans, New Yorkers, should carry a little bit more weight, because that happened now, real time. Whereas the harassment, he said, she said, it happened over a period of time. And I say he said, she said, because although the Me Too movement wants to say believe every woman, how about believing every man? How about innocent until proven guilty? We do still believe in that. At least I hope we do. And I know how people behave in corporate America or in office settings. Now, I'm not saying that these women are lying. I'm not saying that what they said didn't happen. But there are 3 sides to every story. His side, their side, and then the right, the truth. And getting to the truth isn't as easy as just saying he's guilty because this is the Me Too movement. Cuomo put in place all these laws that are supposed to protect women, and I commend him on that. But I think the Me Too movement has gone a bit too far. Look at the president of the New York chapter of the Me Too movement. She stepped down. Why? Because she was harassing these women and trying to protect him, trying to discredit these women. Do I believe that he rubbed his hands down someone's back? Yes. Do I believe he probably inappropriately kissed someone? Yes. By the fact that he was the boss, that shouldn't have happened. But do I believe that these women, or some of them probably, more than likely, thought this was okay at the time? Yes. So again, there are three sides to this whole saga. His side, their side, and then the truth. I wanted us to get to the truth. Now that's the realistic side of it, the being fair side, the taking a step back and looking at this collectively and saying, wait a minute, why is all this coming out now? Now, the political side. Do you actually think Joe Biden likes Cuomo, the person that they wanted to replace him back in 2020? Do you think Kamala Harris likes Cuomo, knowing that he was probably going to try and run for the presidency in 2024? So conventional wisdom, the political side would say, hey, let's get rid of him. They wanted him out of there so that they wouldn't have to go up against him. And of course, the liberal media would have been on his side. Look at his brother on CNN, a regular propaganda machine for Andrew Cuomo. You can't get any dirtier or stinkier than that. The media in cahoots, wide open, rallying behind this guy when the country was up against a crisis. But this is where we are, 2021, with politics. Now let's bring on our guest, Andrew, and let's see what they have to say. Journalist Heather Robinson.
Hey guys,
and social media commentator Bebe Diamond.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, we're glad to have you both on, and we'd like to have you on to get your analysis on the current events, things that are taking place. So since Andrew kicked it off with Cuomo, who has, about a week left in office, I think he could have gotten out right away, but he's trying to hold on for dear life. Some people feel that he might not go. So what is your take on it, Heather?
I think that this is overdue. I also share your skepticism and suspicion, Rob. I think I'm going to go out there on a limb and say my personal speculation is that Cuomo has struck some kind of a deal here. I think the far bigger, more serious scandal potentially is what happened with the nursing homes. He has never been forced to account for forcing nursing homes to open their doors to death in the middle of the pandemic. He has never been put in a position of having to explain his terrible decision or why all the federal resources that President Trump sent, the Navy ship, the USS Comfort, and there was a fine military hospital set up and staffed at Javits Center, which went drastically underutilized at the same time that these nursing homes were being forced to accept sick elderly. Several of the nursing homes are on record as having told him directly, this is dangerous. We won't be able to control it once COVID is in here. So these are really grave matters. And I think that sexual harassment is serious, but it's not life and death. And I think that he's taken an out here, perhaps. I think that this is very deep corruption, possibly of the highest order. I can't prove that, but it seems that nobody really is going to be allowed to prove that because he's leaving and he's not being required to answer for the greater scandal. That's what I think.
Phoebe?
Yeah, thank you. One of the things I thought was how despicable it was of him to say the reason I did all the touching, the inappropriate touching, what have you, is because it's due to my Italian or Sicilian roots. I thought that was really offensive to Italian Americans, many, if not most of whom are Catholic and who conduct themselves well and in a professional manner. That was outrageous. But yes, I agree with Heather. I think there's something deeper going on. I'm really shocked and upset that the Attorney General of the state of New York did not and is not conducting a review of the seniors that were killed because of Cuomo's orders. So that to me is a deeper issue. Now, some of the women, maybe Johnetta come lately, but I do believe that Cuomo did inappropriately touch various women. I do believe that is true. However, Giuliani's take on it, and I have to kind of agree with him. If we have the evidence, let's charge him. So it's interesting that the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, did not formally charge Cuomo. That's interesting. But I guess the best thing at this point is that he is stepping down. And you're right, Rob, he has about a week left in office. Thank you.
Right. Letitia James, who is a political hack, let's just be honest, she sees a future for herself as well in all of this. Maybe a run for governor, a run for, or someone might pick her to be on their ticket as a vice president. This is just how the Democrats roll. We have to look at this. We have to really analyze it and speak truth to power. The previous governors that New York has had were Democrats. And how did they get out of office? Sexual scandals. And who took the helm after them? A black guy, and now a female. Minorities. And I hate using that word. I hate it. But we just have to just call it the way it is. This is how they rise up the chain. They kick out the governor who harassed women. And in what's his name, Spitzer's case, he was having sex with prostitutes, high-paid prostitutes with the socks on. I mean, these guys have all kind of fetishes. I'm not talking down about it. I'm just saying what it is. But Letitia James not charging him. And I read some of the charges, and they're really flimsy the way it was put together. It was redundant in a lot of cases. And when she gave her presentation, her tone was as though she was reading some dirge, an obituary of sorts, as opposed to just standing firm and saying, these are the charges. This is what our investigation unearthed. But she wanted to play to the cameras. She wanted to show that she can act. Shame on you, Letitia. And this is the same woman who said that if she's elected Attorney General, she's going to go after President Trump. So do not doubt or think for half a second that she's not going to press charges against him with things that other women have said or business deals. This is just how the Democrats operate. Meanwhile, we have Hunter Biden and all of his scandals right before our very eyes. We have tapes, we have videos, we have tweets, we have emails. But yet and still, Christopher Wray says there's nothing to see here. This is America. And then we wonder why people don't trust the government. We wonder why people don't trust the law. Well, look at what's happening. You can't be blind. And I don't care how much you hate President Trump. This is not about him. This is about our justice system. This is about the law. This is about the law being fair and equal to all and justice being blind. Now, Cuomo probably worked out a deal that if you don't impeach me, if you don't prosecute me, I'll step down because he wants to run again. And do not doubt that if he decides to run again, New Yorkers will vote for him. De Blasio, he's eyeing running for governor. Some people will laugh and say, oh, please. Well, he ran for the president. And do not doubt, if he were to run for governor, New York City, which is majority of where the votes come from, him. It's unbelievable.
Well,
Yeah, the brainwashing. I'm sorry, Heather. You're absolutely right, Rob. Unfortunately, the brainwashing is very deep. And one of the main tools that the Democrats have on their side is the media. And I know within the Black community, it's not only the media, then we have the celebrities, then we have the churches and so called civil rights leaders who are all in sync pushing this message to just vote Democrat, because Democrat, they're for the poor, Republicans are for the rich. So unfortunately, with that brainwashing, you're more than likely correcting your assessment. Thank you.
Heather, you're about to say?
wow, that's so just sobering, Bebe, to hear. And I was just going to say that if it's true that New Yorkers would vote for him again, Rob, that's only reinforcement of the why this happened, how this could happen. I mean, Bibi talked about brainwashing. When you have a political culture that is so monolithic, only Democrat, knee jerk, leftist, everything, voters who will vote for the same kinds of policies and politicians no matter what the direct results of these misguided policies, and no matter how much corruption will defend and defend till their last breath, then you get corruption, and you get potentially the deepest kind of corruption. If that's true, it's only testament to how this could have happened in the first place. I mean, if there is no accountability, I mean, then corruption follows. We know that power corrupts. And when you don't hold politicians to account, when the voters don't and the media doesn't, and you referenced the horrendous glaring conflict of interest of Chris Cuomo, excuse me, yucking it up with his brother every night on prime time in the midst of a nationwide life and death crisis, you see why these kinds of conflicts of interest are not supposed to go on. I mean, the media is not supposed to be corrupt, but in this case it was, and they got to put a jolly attractive face every night on horrible neglect and mismanagement that resulted in the deaths of thousands. And if New Yorkers are so fanatical and knee jerk as to vote for that again, then I think President Trump is right. Cuomo will have destroyed New York.
Yeah, good points. Do you guys think that, Bibi, I'll start with you. Do you think that's what happened here, that he basically agreed to resign so they will leave him alone about this nursing home scandal and it does not continue to plague him?
I think you're absolutely right. And I like Heather's analysis in that because we have been so brainwashed and Cuomo was treated as such a hero by the media during the COVID pandemic in 2020, he was allowed to get away with a lot of this. And I think also our conditioning, particularly in the New York City area when it comes to Democrats, we just kind of went along with it. But I do pray that New Yorkers, should he decide to run again, that we will not vote for him, because it would cause the ruin of New York State, not just the city, because people are already fleeing New York, going to places such as Florida, because it's too restrictive here in New York, the tax burden and all that. So if we continue with de Blasio or Cuomo, it will ruin this great state. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Rob, what are your thoughts on that? You've been talking about the politicization of this Cuomo resigning all show long. Do you think that he probably cut a deal about resigning and then maybe they'll leave him alone about this nursing home scandal? And as someone else mentioned, not have charges brought up against him legally in this harassment situation.
See, I never thought about the nursing home strategy that he might have went to them and said, hey, I will resign up the entire nursing home scandal. Because it's my understanding that they're still investigating it. But they did come out and say that they dropped any thoughts of impeachment. And then they came up with, well, we can't impeach a person who's left office. Oh, really? Well, what happened with Donald Trump? But we won't go there. We'll discuss that another time. If that was a deal that they made, shame on them all. Because now, the loved ones of the 15,000 that died will never get to the bottom of this. Well, no, we know the truth. We know what happened. But he will never have to answer to it. And to me, that is extremely sad. Because we know what he did was wrong. Now, some will say, yeah, but he's a governor, and he told them to put them there because of, okay, fine. But it was still wrong. 15,000 people died that shouldn't have died. And had the media not jerked his brain up and made him out to be this like person that was like in control when he wasn't. And you can go back and look at some of our shows. And I said this on numerous occasions. I said, I don't trust the guy. I don't believe him because I live in New York City. And what he's saying is just window dressing. But people fell for it. Now that's a con artist right there. Where's Bloomberg in this definition of a con artist? He likes to talk about a con artist. Well, Cuomo is a con artist. All the while he was, being risky with the women. And again, I'm not saying that they didn't welcome it, who knows? But they put him up on a pedestal. And look at what happened. He was supposed to be the president. He could have taken Joe Biden's place. Well, they said the same thing about Michael Avenatti. And look at where he's ending up, the other side of a prison. See, this is how the Democrats operate. Rules for thee, not for me. And there's no one out there to hold them accountable but themselves. No one, period. Who's going to hold them accountable? The only time they're held accountable is when they feel that their party feels as though that they're a threat. Then they will hold them accountable. Then they will say, okay, we've got to take this person down. But if that was the deal that was struck, that they wouldn't go after him, as long as he stepped down, it is a sad day in our country because that type of deal should not have been made. It's really a sad day. 15,000 people murdered, dead. They're not coming back because of decisions that Cuomo made. All the while striking a deal for how much did he make on the book? Like $2 million. The family should sue him and they should be able to get that money. Shame, shame, shame.
May I just say this, Rob, very quickly? In this country, particularly during the Jim Crow era, there were two tiers of justice, one for blacks, predominantly blacks, and one for whites. That is no longer the case. The two-tier is based on your party affiliation. There's a justice for Democrats. They seem to get away with just about everything, but we get prosecuted. Look what Antifa did, BLM, summer 2020. That's all ignored. But January 6th, some people made a mistake and their lives have been turned upside down, some been held in solitary confinement. So what I'm saying to you, Rob, very quickly, and to the audience, they'll try to put President Trump in jail, but they will let Governor Cuomo slide. And we have, I assume Letitia James has evidence of the harassment of women, and we know he's responsible for the deaths of thousands of seniors. There's a two-tier justice system, and if you're not a liberal, you're going to be prosecuted. Thank you.
And that's very strong to say. Two-tier, and if you're not a liberal, you will be prosecuted. And they will only get prosecuted when their party says, okay, we no longer need them, let's get rid of them. And it should not be that way. I mean, this is glaring at us all in the face. We see what's happening here. This guy is walking away. He's getting off scot-free for crimes that he committed. Now, we're not saying that the sexual harassment, that they shouldn't look at that. But the 15,000 people, and if I could just add on to that, that we were told that this deadly virus, China virus, also known as COVID-19, affected minorities in great numbers. So of the 15,000 people that died, how many were minorities? Black and brown people, women. We need to know, you need to know. But this is New York City. And the liberal elite will look the other way. And then they will complain that the government isn't working. They will complain about the crime. And I know you're going to get to that, Andrew. But you look at the crime around you. Do not doubt who's causing the crime. Do not doubt whose policies have allowed this to happen with defund the police. They defunded the police, and look at what happened. Crime skyrocketed. 10 years from now, we'll be in the same boat, and people will be saying, why is this? Why do we have all the crime? Who brought this? Let's blame the Republicans. No, Democrats, you wanted to defund the police. You started this. And the only reason why I will blame Republicans is because they're so weak and feckless and jellyback that they're afraid to stand up. And not only that, what are you going to put in this place? We can sit there and point to the crime all day long. Look at Chicago. Yes, people are dying left and right. Look at New York City. But what do you propose to put in its place? How about getting there and grooming candidates? How about getting there to those communities and telling people, hey, this is what we need to do. Today, I was out and about attending an event, and the topic came up of Black on Black crime. And I thought it was so interesting that the person speaking said, we, Black people, have got to look at our communities, and we have got to start calling out the criminals. We've got to stop letting them hide. We've got to start blaming the police. We have got to work with the police. And they were all shaking their heads saying, yes, yes, amen, amen. And then he said, we've also got to go into our churches and make certain that our churches understand what we're going through. And again, amen, amen. But then I was listening, I'm like, do they know that the party that they promote could care less about their churches? Do they know that the party that they promote wants to get rid of their churches? Do they know that the party that they promote tells them you can't go to church? Meanwhile, Barack Obama is having a soiree on Martha's Vineyards, and they're not using masks. In Chicago, they're having Lollapalooza, and they're not using masks. But they're telling you, don't you dare go to church and serve your God. It is despicable, and people need to wake up.
Excellent, excellent points, Rob. Very good. Thank you.
I agree with you, Rob. One thing I did want to interject, if I may, as far as Cuomo, I think we probably should note, we don't know for a fact if what he did was criminal because there hasn't been a thorough investigation. But that's part of the problem. At the very least, the public and the media should be able to ask Cuomo these questions. He should have to answer for his decision. I'm talking about the infamous mandating of accepting COVID positive patients in nursing homes that were full of vulnerable elderly. There may have been reasons. You know, this was a very fast evolving, difficult situation for everyone. But the problem is he's not ever been asked these questions, or if he has been, he hasn't been made to answer them. The other point we should remember is that there were a lot of federal resources sent. Probably, I would think, in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars spent on New York, on equipping New York with that Navy ship and Javits Center. Why was that all unused? I mean, to me, it's astonishing that just, I mean, on the level of basic fiscal responsibility, I mean, and of course, in the humanitarian level, why is this not at least, I mean, maybe there are reasons it couldn't be used, but at the very least, why is this not something being thoroughly investigated and accounted for? So I think that yes, we have to realize that it's corruption of the highest order, and yes, we can have our suspicions, and I think we have the right to them. I mean, because it makes no sense to me that is not something that has ever been explained to the public.
Heather, you're making an excellent point. And Rob, I just want to go back quickly to what you were saying. And one of the missions that my mother and I, Barbara from Harlem, are on, we want to educate Black people, because a lot of Black people do believe in God. They are Christians, but they have been trained to automatically vote for Democrats. What they're not doing is connecting the dots between a vote for Democrat is a vote for an anti-American, anti-God agenda. And we have to make that clear so we can break that, because we need to start thinking and electing better people than an Andrew Cuomo. I just wanted to add that in there. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Just shifting topics a little bit. 212,000 illegal aliens have been apprehended at the southern border in the month of July. Cumulatively, that means we are at about 1.5 million for the year to date on the upside, and that's just the ones that we have captured. What are your thoughts on this continued crisis at the border? I just continue to ask myself, what are we going to continue to do with all these new people pouring into our country? It just seems like it has gotten totally out of control. We can start off with Heather, who wrote the great New York Post article on sex trafficking earlier. Sorry, I almost said the New York Times. That would have been quite the insult. New York Post. Heather, what have been your thoughts on the border?
Well, I think that what really concerns me most, and what I wrote about, is the potential for abuse of children, which I am told from people who can speak freely, who are retired from the Border Patrol, goes up precipitously when border enforcement is loose. I shudder to think how many more children are being trafficked, because the policy as it is makes it easier to get here if you come with a child, get through the system. Very, very bad policy. I think that the idea is supposedly humanitarian, but the unintended potential horrible consequence that a lot of people, including liberals, don't understand is that people, the worst kinds of people, are taking advantage of this. It's terrible. And actually, I think it's a situation where it is much kinder and more humanitarian to be firm and to maintain the border. My understanding is there is a procedure for asylum claims, true asylum claims, and there's a bureaucratic process. I'm sure it's not easy. I'm sure there's terrible hardship for many Mexican people and Central American people and others, and I am not without compassion for that. But I don't believe the answer is zero enforcement, particularly is this misguided policy of making it easier if you come with a child, because it's incentivizing traffickers and coyotes and people to use children to get in here. I also think that we should prioritize helping people whose lives are in danger right now in Afghanistan, people who have made the choice to work with America. I've really never understood why. And again, I don't say this without compassion for the people of Central and South America and Mexico, but why people who are randomly coming here in search of a better life should be given priority over those who have demonstrated their loyalty to this country and their allegiance to our values and put their lives on the line to serve as translators and in other roles assisting our troops. I don't know why everyone in the world should be given priority randomly over those people. I mean, I think if we're going to talk about expediting immigration, we ought to start with people who are genuinely facing grave danger and death for having stood with America. And my understanding is there are quite a few people right now in Afghanistan who, are in that position. So I think we need to consider, who we're actually letting into the country. And I think that's healthy boundaries, and that's what we should prioritize right now.
I think what's going on, great insight, Heather. Thank you. It's an utter disgrace. This is not about Republican or Democrat. This is about protecting the United States of America. How dare the media, how dare the Biden administration try to force Americans to take a vaccines rather, that have not been approved by the FDA except for emergency use. We're being forced, we're being shamed. What New York City, what de Blasio, the communist, wants to do, and it's going to negatively impact Black people. He wants us to show vaccine passports. That's un-American and it's unconstitutional. Meanwhile, the borders are open. Does that make sense to anybody? And they are surreptitiously, I hope I'm saying that word correctly, under the darkness of night, they're sending immigrants to different cities, not telling us whether they've been tested for COVID or given the vaccine. Why are we forced to take an unproven, unapproved vaccine while immigrants just walk in here? That is unacceptable. And most of the unvaxxed in New York City are minorities, particularly Blacks. Now we're going to be penalized, segregated once again by the Democrats. It is unconstitutional. It violates the Fourth Amendment. It violates the HIPAA Privacy Act. This is outrageous. What's going on at the border? Human sex traffickers are having a field day. I mean, this is outrageous. I mean, and then talk about Afghanistan, all the blood, work, and labor by our U.S. military down the drain. As we're speaking, the Taliban have taken over the U.S. embassy. It's like a scene out of Saigon in the 1970s. We have abandoned the Afghan people. Americans are still there. And where's Biden? This is outrageous. It should enrage every Democrat. See, the thing about Republicans, I have to give us some credit, although I'm an independent. At least we will raise our voices and say, what the hell is going on? Democrats are silent. Your silence equals consent. So you're consenting to the destruction of our country. You're okay with the takeover. Taliban have taken over. Why were we in Afghanistan and we were going to just let it go to the Taliban? This is unacceptable. He should be impeached. But then we have Kamala, who's an idiot. Sorry, she is an idiot. I mean, oh my gosh. The Democrats have ruined it. They haven't ruined our country. I don't want to be too negative. They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House, and they can't even get anything straight. It's a disgrace. Thank you.
Bebe, you're all fired up, and I agree with you 100%. Everything that you've said, both you and Heather. The Democrats have just completely messed things up. You look at the border. I want to talk about that first. Something that Heather mentioned. The sex trafficking, these innocent kids that are coming here. And Andrew, as you noted, from January up until now, hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens have come here, illegal immigrants. To be fancy, people want to dress it up. They don't want to hurt their feelings, but they don't mind hurting my feelings and attacking me. But be that as it may, almost 1 million illegal aliens have gotten inside of this country. And as Bebe said, and I've mentioned on several shows, they have bused them and airlifted them to different parts of the country in the wee hours of the night. Governors, mayors, not knowing who's coming in and out. They just took them there and dropped them off. It's part of their plan to change the makeup of the country. Do not doubt that they want to try and get these individuals to vote. Do not doubt that they're trying to affect gerrymandering. Do not doubt that this will affect the census. This is all part of their plan. They sat down with big tech and devised this plan. Remember, Maxine Waters mentioned this to us. She let it slip right before Barack Obama left office. She said that they had an in-house devoted to big tech and that they were looking at the votes. So they did their forecasting and they saw we could win this and we could be in control forever. Let the illegals in. When Barack came in 2008, he said, do not come here. It's not safe. During his entire first term, but then the last 2 years of his second term, he changed. They were okay with it because they saw that if they let them come in, they will vote Democratic. Now, the challenge was, how can we make them citizens? We've kicked this can down the road. People have complained and said, well, we're all immigrants. And that's a bunch of bull. Stop believing it. Stop listening to that. We all came from other countries. And, the Indians, they were here first, and they were the indigenous people. Okay, but thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, the Indians came across on the ice when everything was ice. They came across to America. So they also came over interlopers. So all this talk about the white man did it, this person did it, it's bull. Stop believing it. We're all interlopers. But the thing is that the people that are here now, they are the citizens. So don't come telling me we can let people come in from the southern border because they're entitled just like I'm entitled. Bull crap. I'm a U.S. citizen. I have rights that they don't have, and I should have those rights. I was born here. Interlopers that came here years and years ago, they're dead and gone. We are Americans. We got to stop allowing the liberals to twist this craziness. It's stupid. When I hear people say that, oh, well, the white man came here, they're dead. They're dead and gone. They're not coming back. Okay? Let's wake up. This is just plain history. It's common sense. But we keep allowing them to take us back thousands and hundreds of years ago and say, well, you don't belong here. I belong here. Throw that African American out the window. I am American. Okay? I am an American. Just like the Indian is an American who's on the reservations. Their ancestors have long since died. So why are we constantly beating ourselves up over the head for things that people did years ago? Let's focus on the now. And the now tells me, shut the border. Stop allowing people to come here spreading COVID. Oh, they're not spreading COVID. How do you know? You're not testing them. This is pitiful. And the other thing, now that they're here, millions of them, we're not without a heart. We're not without being sympathetic. They should not be allowed to participate in the things that Americans can participate in, such as voting. No way.
Well,
They
but
should
now
not.
we don't need ID to vote, right? Isn't that convenient?
We don't need ID to vote, but you need ID to go to a restaurant now because if you haven't had your vaccine. It's ridiculous.
But isn't it an interesting coincidence that as our country is flooded with many illegal immigrants, the democratic policy is also that we should relax the requirements for voting. So, I'm guessing that those two things dovetail together to promote a democratic lock on elections.
Yeah, but even more so, now that they're here, what are we going to do? They sit not hopscotch ahead of people who came here legally. What are we going to do? And we had a guest who came on here once, I think it was Diego, who's running for the governor of California. And he said, we just got to accept the fact that they're here. Do you actually think we can round them all up, find them, and then send them back? No, that's wishful thinking. That can't happen. We don't even know where half of them are. No, we can dangle some money out there, as one of our guests said, and say, hey, we'll give you $1,000 if you go back to Mexico. Well, here's the thing. Will Mexico allow them to re-enter? I seriously doubt it. Well, they might take the money. You're not coming back here. So what do we do? And I ask this of Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, independents, libertarians. What do we do? Well, here's a novel idea. First off, we say you can't vote. Not now. Not ever. Let's just get real. These are things that we can do and say. You cannot vote. If you want to be here, 15 years, there cannot be a blemish on your record. But we know some of them will probably get a blemish. Well, if you do, that's it. You don't become a citizen. You can be a legal resident, but you can't be a citizen. We have got to hold citizenship up as being the highest standard, near and dear, and not just anyone can get it. Because we've got too many people coming here thinking, oh, I can be a citizen. Well, why can't I be? Because your ancestors came here. Again, we got to shut that down. And we got to say, wait a minute. We're not the interlopers. They died years ago. We were born here. We're entitled to be here, just like the indigenous people, here and anywhere else. Let's stop beating ourselves up and making ourselves feel bad for things that our ancestors did hundreds of years ago. Let's just stop it. We don't forget, but let's stop it. Because every country has the exact same history as to what they've done. So why is it that we're going to beat up on America? The next thing you know, when we go out of space, oh, you're interloping out of space. You're taking over outer space. Stop the nonsense. I mean, seriously, it makes no sense. So back to my point. How do we make it right? We can't send them back. So let's just say, you got to be here for 15 to 20 years before you can become a citizen. There can't be a blemish on your record. And the reason I say that is because some of them who've come already, they've had kids. They're Americans now. Now, if you look at the Constitution carefully, as one person said, it says if you're born here, you're an American. But people are taking that for granted. If you're stealing across the border just to have a kid so that you can stay here, we shouldn't allow that. We should say, no, I'm sorry that way. If our men and women overseas are having kids, their kids don't become citizens of that country. So why are we allowing this? These people are coming over here as stowaways. They're sneaking over here. We should not automatically say that you are citizens. And that is something that our legislatures can affect. They need to think about this and say, wait a minute, let's change it. Let's do an amendment. Let's clearly define what the Constitution is saying because people are abusing it. And can you blame them? That's what humans do. If they see a loophole, they will abuse it. We've got to come clean on this because if we don't, our country, we will lose it. And unfortunately, many on the left want us to do just that, lose the country.
Mm-hmm. And I bet you, Rob, that if there were laws passed to prevent illegals from voting, we'd see a lot of the so-called liberal leftist compassion for these people dry up pretty fast. My personal view is that I think there are some well-intended people who mean well, but I think that the bigger motivation behind this is the votes. I think that's really what it's always been. Or why would there not be such passionate commitment to helping the hundreds of thousands of people seeking asylum in this country? You know, I know a young man who was blinded as a boy by an Islamist in Sudan. They put his eyes out. He's still waiting to be granted asylum. He's here in this country, but it's such a lengthy process. You talk about the translators, the people who stake their lives to support U.S. troops and the U.S. mission in Afghanistan. I don't see liberals in the streets screaming and advocating for their safe passage and expediting their citizenship here. I mean, if this is really purely about humanitarianism, why is there not more concern for the Cubans who are living under communism and going hungry and lacking medicine and freedom and desperate to get here? This is very selective so-called humanitarianism, and it's really much more about what's politically perceived as advantageous to the Democrats, and it's wrapped up as something that it really isn't. And that's pretty lousy, and it's playing with people's lives. It's insincere, and I think that we should really start with people who have demonstrated alignment with our values, whose lives are in bona fide danger when we're talking about asylum. And there is a procedure for asylum, and it's something specific. It's a specific legal set of requirements that is not just about looking for a better life. It's about your life being in genuine, your life and limb being in genuine, mortal danger, immediate mortal danger if you are turned back. And that sacred American tradition of honoring that has been watered down here. And it's been done for the sake of power, for the sake of getting more votes. And I think your idea is an interesting one, to make crystal clear, if there were a way to really pass laws saying, okay, we'll take a number of people, but they will not be voters. Maybe conservatives can present the Democrats with a deal like that. This many people, and we vet them, but they will not be voters in the country. If this is really about asylum and they are desperate people in mortal danger, by the way, they're not going to, mind whether or not they're going to be okay with not getting to vote. If this is life and death, they'll be happy just to be here. And we'll see if the Democrats are so passionate about it, about letting everybody in if these people can't vote for them ever. Something tells me this issue would just go, evaporate overnight.
Yeah, it probably will. If they realize that they can't vote for them, they will stop wanting them to come here. Whatever reason would they not want the Cubans to come here? Because they're afraid that they won't vote for them.
Right. It's not really
and it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be this way. It's not about human concern, the human condition. It's more so what we can get from this.
Absolutely. The Democrats want another voting bloc because minorities, particularly Hispanics, are voting for Republicans. Let's just call it a spade a spade. I've realized for the Democrats, it's not about humanitarian purposes. It is about power. This is why they do not work actively to improve the lives of Black people in the inner city. They're not for school choice. They are not for teaching. I'm not blaming the teachers. It's more the teachers' unions and the school boards. They are more for indoctrination rather than equipping our children with a proper education and learning how to read, write, and do arithmetic. It's all about a power structure for the Democrats. They do not care. Classic liberalism, I would have thought, did care about the poor, did care about the working class. That is not today's Democratic Party. They are power hungry, and they want immigrants to come in who do not understand how we were formed, who will be a class of victims, who will get free this, free that. And that just leads us to socialism, but they don't care because it's free and they'll vote for Democrats. Whereas people as aware as the Cubans, they reject socialism, they reject Marxism. That is why the Democrats are kind of cool when it comes, or offstandish when it comes to Cuban Americans. It is shocking and it's outrageous. And I want to spread that message far and wide that the Democrats really don't care about the poor. We were told that, we were brainwashed with that. They care about the poor, whereas Republicans only care about the rich. That is a big lie, and that big lie must be exposed. And thanks to President Trump, in part, it has been exposed. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. Let's move on to probably the biggest story of the year so far to date, what is happening in Afghanistan. It's been brought up a few times in the show, but a total of 2,312 U.S. military personnel have died in Afghanistan. 20,066 have been wounded since 2001. The number of civilian deaths in Afghanistan ranged from 35 to 40,000, while the cost for the United States has been $824 billion. And then you look at what has just happened in the last week in particular. It is so sad what we are seeing go on in Afghanistan. It is unbelievable that Joe Biden did not see this coming. And I think this scandal is going to live with him throughout his presidency, and how he reacts to this will definitely shape the next couple of years of his foreign policy. Rob, we'll start off with you. What have been your thoughts on what we've seen in Afghanistan thus far?
Robert Gage said some time ago that Joe Biden has been wrong on every military issue for the past 40 plus years or more. Now that speaks volume as to the man that Joe Biden is. The media has downplayed it. Barack Obama thought nothing of it. But that is huge, that he has gotten everything wrong. Iraq, he got it wrong. Afghanistan, he's gotten wrong. And every other little war or skirmish that the United States was involved in, Joe Biden got it wrong. But yet and still, President Biden is in the White House. Afghanistan is falling. Where is President Biden? Well, he's at Camp David or Delaware, someplace, drinking warm milk and eating cookies. Elder abuse. Jill, what are you doing? This is not good for the country. Now, the media is trying to dress it up. They'll go hard on him and try to ask him poignant questions. The man should have never been in the White House. Let's just be honest. Let's say that, okay, they voted for him. Had media and big tech not suppressed information, I don't care what hate people had for President Trump, Joe Biden would not have been in the White House. Now, we all know the Time magazine article whereby they came out and admitted that they colluded. Now, don't think that Christopher Wray is going to investigate it, because he's not. Don't think that anyone in the Congress is going to investigate it, because they're not. This is up to the people to make this decision. And 2024. And give him a resounding defeat. With 50 votes, that's it. The Democrat Party has to be dismissed quickly, swiftly, and summarily, and it has to be known, and people have to see it. It has to be a precise defeat. We need to take back our country. The world is laughing at us over Afghanistan. As soon as Joe said, we're taking them out, look at what happened. Now, some will say, well, Trump has said the same thing. Trump wanted to take them out. Yep, Trump did. And Trump said we should have never gone to Afghanistan. We should have never gone to Iraq. But does anyone seriously think that if Trump was in the White House and he pulled the troops out, that the Taliban would have so quickly and so swiftly took over? Heck no. They thought he was a madman. They thought Trump was crazy. And they knew if they had pulled something like that, they would have been gone to smithereens. Now, that's not to say that they wouldn't have tried, because they would have tried. You look at roaches. When you use raid to get rid of them, they'll try to come back. You turn the lights out, they'll try to regather. But then you use it again. And you stomp them out. The same thing with the Taliban. Look at ISIS. Trump obliterated ISIS, which formed after Barack Obama carelessly allowed them to form. This will fall on Biden's feet. The media will try to clean it up, just like they're trying to clean up COVID-19 deaths. The vaccine, how it's all messed up. It's interesting how they always go back to Trump. Well, if it's his fault, why won't Joe just pick up the phone and say, Mr. President, will you please do a public service announcement and get people to take the vaccine? Well, he won't do that. He won't even call Barack Obama. And why isn't Barack Obama saying it? He's the first Black president. Why would he tell Black people, take the vaccine? He's too busy twerking on Martha's Vineyard. And now we have Afghanistan. Why won't Obama come out and say, hey, guys, don't do that? Well, because he's already ill-advised Biden as to what to do, and it's failing. The media hates it. So they're dancing around everything else. And as always, well, Trump was going to do the same thing. Again, he sure was. But do you actually think the Taliban would have gone in so quickly, so swiftly? It was already planned. And now China, who have gone to Afghanistan, said, we will recognize the Taliban as government. They're waiting to pick up the pieces. They're waiting to tell Afghanistan, okay, we're going to clean this up for you. Knowing that when they do, they're going to take over. Because see, China doesn't play. Once they clean up, they own you. And if you try to go out against them, that's it. They will put you in your place. If the United States of America is the superpower, what we say goes. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, no, we can't do that. Oh, yes, we can. And yes, we should. It's time to stop playing around. Our lives matter. And when we send our sons and daughters out there to defend, they should just think they can kill them and there are no consequences. They can't think they can just take our money, go and spit on us. That's stupid. We've got to change this. Afghanistan is a failure, thanks to Joe Biden, thanks to the Democrats. Now, how do we save face? Look at Saigon, as Bebe mentioned earlier on. The media doesn't want to call it that, but it is that. And then they're trying to scuttle around and get all our people out of there. The blood on Americans, once again, on the hands of a Democrat president. It is time we wake up.
Powerful, Rob. Very powerful. I don't think, unfortunately, we're going to make much progress until the Republicans take back the House and the Senate. And I do pray also in 2024 that a Republican is elected president. Then we can turn this ship around, because we have big tech censoring us. We have the media. We have all these different institutions covering up the truth. And we're going to have a truth commission one day to unpack all of this. And unfortunately, that's where we are right now. The election was stolen. And I thank God for states like Arizona presenting evidence. But to think that Trump is going to be reinstated anytime soon is not realistic. But we absolutely must take back this country in order to save it. And your analysis was spot on, Rob. Excellent job. Thank you.
And just to say, as far as, because we hear quite a bit of this, that Trump is going to take office again in August. No, I think that is the media putting that out there, and they're blaming QAnon. They're saying, oh, we see the chatter and people that Trump is going to be installed in August. No, Trump supporters aren't saying that. Let's just get real. We follow the Constitution. We know what the Constitution says. There has to be an election. Okay. So the media needs to stop lying on Trump supporters. The FBI needs to stop lying and saying that there might be a possible coup on 9/11. Stop lying. I'm tired of the lies. I'm tired of the intelligence community lying on Trump supporters and trying to make Trump supporters look like they're wackos. Yes, there are some people within that group that are all way off the deep end. But look at the left. Look at the lies they told for 4 years that Russia colluded and Russia didn't collude. The only collusion was taking place was the left-wing media and big tech and Hunter Biden and his laptop. Russia should sue these people. They say, you guys have slandered us for too long. We're going to sue.
How about Chris Cuomo and his brother yucking it up every night in the midst of a public health nightmare? Is that collusion? That's certainly putting a smiling, happy face. It's on complete incompetence at best, corruption at worst. It's the media colluding with one political party right in front of everybody. And apparently that was okay. You know, I did want to mention a couple things about Afghanistan, Rob. A couple of these are more questions. I've wondered these past few days, as we see Kabul fall, we see all this terrible stuff. I remember the phrase "graveyard of empires." I think it was a title, reference to Afghanistan. Apparently, Russia and others have tried to manage this area. I don't know if any of you guys know, frankly, what it is about Afghanistan that is so significant. I know why we went in the first place was to degrade al-Qaeda's ability to launch terrorist attacks from there with the Taliban. But it seems like this particular area has tremendous strategic importance. Honestly, I don't know, and I don't know that a lot of Americans understand why. But I can only think that it is important in terms, because it's not just us. It's been a disputed part of the world for many decades. And I think that also I wanted to mention, I think that what you said about us signaling the Taliban was on point. Unfortunately, maybe it's because we have to be accountable to our people, and that's a good thing. But we have to talk about committing troops and when we will and when we won't. And these horrible terrorists and people like that, obviously they don't do that. And so it's like, got to be a terrible built-in problem. How do we leave a place like this without signaling the enemy that we're leaving? And I'm not saying what Biden did here was right at all, but I do think it's a built-in logistical problem that a democracy has, a genuine democracy that doesn't view human lives as expendable and doesn't view our troops as expendable. We have to let them know that, they're getting ready to go, and that alerts the enemy. So.
Well, I think one of the things is that, in this area, stand as a whole, whenever we're into any of these little small countries where we're trying to clean house and whatnot, we have got to be prepared to stay for the long haul. Look how long we've been in Afghanistan, for 20 plus years. And for it to fall so quickly, it begs the question, was the government that we claim was there, was it actually ever working? I mean, you have the president who left Afghanistan, he's left, and I think he's in Europe someplace. I want him to come to America. Okay, we always get these people leaving these countries and then coming to America. I don't want them here because I don't trust them. I just don't trust them at all. That being said, 20 years in Afghanistan, why is it that they couldn't, stand up on their own? We shouldn't have been there that long. And as one person said, once we went there the first time and did what we needed to do, we should have just left.
George Washington, our first president, I will simply quote him. And I realize these are complicated issues, but I keep thinking about his famous statement, "Beware foreign entanglements."
Yes.
That was George Washington when he left office as our first president. And I've thought of that many times. And I was not against the Afghanistan policy. It seemed like a worthy thing to try and help people who want democracy or give them a chance. But these are very different cultures than ours. This isn't, as one friend of mine who served in Iraq said. He's a Navy SEAL who served as a hostage rescue negotiator. Brilliant man, who spent time there, Dan O'Shea. He said, look, this is not colonial United States. This is a different set of values.
Yep.
And I think we were naive.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% with everything that you're saying. We were naive, and for some reason, we always think that these countries want our democracy. And our democracy just does not work. I mean, we see what's happening and our hearts go out, but the democracy that we have, every country can't work within that framework. Look at what they're doing to the women now. They're going in and they're, okay, put back on the mask, and you can't go back to school, and you got to leave your jobs. Now notice what I said, put back on your mask.
I wasn't going to say.
Okay, now, is it not interesting to wear their mask, but we're telling our folks, put your mask on? How ironic is that?
Yeah, I think it's.
I know, but still, I know, I get it, but still, I do find that interesting. That being said, for the country to fall so quickly, what happened? Joe, this is on you, bro. Take care of it.
I just want to add to dovetail onto your comment. No, our democracy is not going to fit other cultures, particularly the Islamic culture. See, I'm just saying out loud what other people are thinking. Islam is not only a religion, it is a political system. So no, our form of democracy, where we have liberties for men and for women equally, will not fit an Islamic country if it's based on Islam. So we have to face that fact. And if the people in that country do not want to reform, if they don't want to accept democracy, we have to let that be, as long as we are prepared to defend the United States and not let them defeat us. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Yeah, well said. It's just really crazy and mind-boggling to me that we did make the decision to go there. And if we did do that, you would think after 20 years that we would have had a better exit strategy than what we've seen happen. I think it's hard for a lot of people to stomach, especially ones that have lost loved ones in this war, what we have seen go on this past weekend. It's just so tragic. And really, there are no good answers from here. I do not see a good way or a fast way that Joe Biden could get out of this mess. It has made things so much worse. What do you think, Heather? Is there a way out of this mess? Like, what is Joe Biden's best option here? None of them seem good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is being well handled, but to be real candid and fair, I was wondering a lot over the past few years, what are we even doing there in Afghanistan? So I think a lot of people felt it was time for the troops to come home. And I mean, I guess it's complicated. I guess there are strategic reasons that we were there, which gets back to my question, really, to you guys or to our viewers and listeners, because I admit it's not something I know a great deal about. What exactly is the strategic significance of this particular area? And if it's really that deeply strategic and of such great importance in terms of America's power and in the world, then maybe we should have been prepared to explain that to our people and really stick it out and make it some kind of a satellite of America forever. I mean, I don't know. I mean, either it's important enough to keep fighting for and for Americans to risk their lives to defend, in which case I think that should have been explained to the American people, or we should be getting entangled there as we did for all these years.
Well, something else I want to say is we can't leave Mark Miley off, because while he's been busy to make certain that all of his troops have their diversity training, I mean, he missed this completely. He was saying there's nothing to worry about. Everything will be okay. It fell. He should be relieved of his duties. His career should be over. Yes, he should be defined by this because he has done nothing, as far as I'm concerned, since he's been there. But look at ways to diminish the strength of our soldiers. And as one of our guests said, who came on the show, if we were to go to war, would our troops be ready? Or would they be busy trying to decide which color nail polish to put on? And I hate to say it. And at the rate that we're going, who would want to join our military? No, people aren't looking at our military and saying, oh, wow, they're woke. They know what's up. They're looking at our military and they're saying that they're weak and we can defeat them. And that is a sad thing to say.
But our individual service members, as we know, are anything but weak. They're tremendous fighting force, and there are
Anything but weak. I agree
so
with
many
you.
good people who sign. But I wonder, I like you said, Andrew, if I were the wife or the daughter or the sister of someone who gave his life, his limbs, we saw how brutally these terrorists did our soldiers with the IEDs, which I do incidentally want to mention. That's a mindset, an Islamist extremist mindset that Israel has dealt with for 80 years. There are no rules of war. There are no standards. I mean, this is a brutal enemy that will do anything to children, to anybody, terrorizing people. That's their stock and trade. And we saw this. And I just think that if the mission isn't clear, if people don't understand why we're there, and look at this outcome, it's very demoralizing, and you do wonder. I spoke with somebody today about it who regrets not going into the military when he was younger, and I had to say to him, when you look at this, can you honestly regret that? I mean, can you imagine? And this is nothing, no insult to our brave troops. I'm criticizing the policymakers. I mean, how can you? I mean, look, the precious life of your son, your brother, your father. I mean, how can you be supportive of sending them into deathly peril, when you see that these missions are vague, they are protracted, and they're ending in what appears to be a real failure. I mean, look, on the other hand, who knows? I don't, maybe if we hadn't gone, there would have been more of a terrorist stronghold there in Afghanistan. That's what we initially went to dismantle and degrade, and we did. So, I mean, we don't know what it would have been like the past 20 years if we had left the Taliban in place. Maybe Al Qaeda would have been stronger. And so, these aren't simple black and white things, I think, but it certainly does seem like, in the big picture, we need to be prepared to really fight and win a war, or else maybe reconsider whether we want to commit to these lengthy entanglements.
I know we're up against the clock, but I just want to say, while China is ensuring that their military is strong, they want their men to be masculine and tough. We're feminizing our men too often. We're using, once again, the liberals are using the military as a social experiment. The military is not there for that purpose. Its purpose is to protect the homeland and our interests abroad. Now, we don't want them to be mindless killing machines, but their job is to kill and take out an enemy. Period. It's not to have all this diversity training. We want them to respect one another, of course, common sense. But again, the military is being treated like a social experiment, and that is inappropriate. And the liberals wonder why, even with all the strategies and the cheating and the attempt to have a permanent majority, they don't get it, because the 80% of we are the majority. people who think like us, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever, people with common sense are in the majority. You just don't know that because of the media and because of Hollywood. We are in the majority. We want our military to be ready to go at any moment, because we're always at risk as a number one country in the world. And when the liberals attempt to nitpick at the military, make sure they have diversity training, a vaccine shot that has not been approved by our own government, it does not make sense. So I just pray to God we can just get this turned around as quickly as possible in order to make sure we're safe. Thank you.
Yeah, well said, BB. Anybody else have any final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight?
No, I want to think this is a great show. I think that we covered a lot, and we are passionate about the love of our country. And as it says, you stand for something or you will fall for anything. And I hope those that are listening will share this, will join us again, and will realize that, you know, the country, we're at a precipice. And, you know, we can collapse and fall if we give in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will be back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock Eastern on iHeartRadio or the America Out Loud app. And Rob, who do we have on tomorrow night?
Tomorrow, gosh, that's a great question. Oh, I forgot. Who do we have on tomorrow night? Let's see here. Tomorrow we have on, let's see.
Michael Tremogli.
Yes, Michael Tremogli, and we're discussing the critical race theory.
Yes, he wrote a great four-part series in the Houston Courant on critical race theory. Retired police officer Michael Tremogli will be joining us tomorrow night, so you guys definitely want to tune in on that. And then Tuesday night, we plan on replaying Heather's sex trafficking edition that we filmed with her earlier this year. So join us Monday through Friday on America Out Loud, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and be sure to follow Heather's articles in the New York Post and get in touch with BB on Facebook at BB Diamond. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you guys soon.